I hated networking like at a conference.
Yeah.
Or you kind of go to those like big events where there's like 500 people in a room, you got a name tag and you're like, hi, what do you do? Like just, you can't even really get to know anybody in those environments. No. I kind of really loved intimate circles, a small private room, 12 people at a table.
Totally.
And you get to leave knowing everyone's name and you can talk more deeply. Yeah, when I first talked about this idea, I shared it on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Thinking of building this community. If you're interested, fill out this form. So in 30 days, I had 600 people fill it out. And I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot of people looking for a community.
Wow.
And I wasn't out there to build something like YPO or Chief. I don't need 50,000 members. What I'm really looking for is an exclusive community of like what I consider the best of the best. Like leaders have to have moral character. You can't just be skilled and good at your job, but people can't stand you because you're so fake and you're so performative. Like you genuinely have to have character. And some of these people didn't. And so for me, I don't want to bring those people in. They could go join another community, maybe a community that doesn't do reference checks, that's okay. But this is important. I could have created a community of just CHROs. I could have created a community just for founders. But I go back to my role as an ex-chief people officer. When I was in that role, the biggest issue I found with the founders that I worked with is they're really good founders. They know how to raise capital. They know how to build a company. But what they didn't know well was how to work with other executives. My name is Christine Song. I'm the founder of 529 Society. It's a private leadership network community for founders, operating leaders, and investors who are looking for a community outside of the workplace. We all think that going to work with our peers is a community, and it is in a sense, but you really need a community outside of work where there's no prejudice, where there's no politics, and you're with like-minded peers who can help you with everything that you're challenged with in your job. I think that being a leader is one of the loneliest jobs in the world, and we take a tremendous amount of stress home with us. And so if you're not able to have a peer network to kind of use as a sounding board, you're really isolated and alone.
I want to get to community development.
Yeah.
We were talking off camera about a bunch of stuff to do with startups, to do with people's ability to manage teams and work with other people in companies.
Yep.
So I'd love to pick that up and dig into more, but real quick, kind of let's just start with what you're doing right now, work-wise.
Yeah. So I am now the founder of 529 Society. It's a private leadership community. It's for VP level and above.
Okay.
So we have founders, operators, VP level and above, and investors. And I kind of think of it as it's the three that actually build companies and scale them. You need funding, you need founders, and you need the operators.
Right.
And we're a small community. I started off at the end of June last year, so 2025.
Okay.
And today we're about 60 members.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Chapter in Toronto, chapter in Montreal, going to Ottawa, Vancouver, and Calgary
so
next.
It's Canada, you're focused on.
Well, here's the thing. I was originally going to start with US first. And so my plan was like New York, SF, Austin, Boston, all of that. But with all the craziness that's happening in the US, I thought, well, seriously, I don't want to end up in El Salvador or something. So maybe right now I grow
in the wrong country. Yeah. ICE picks me up and I'm in India. I'm like, hey, man.
Exactly.
That was 200 years ago, bro.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, grow in Canada first. And maybe by summer, I'll kind of look and see, what's happening in the South. But I've always wanted to connect the cities together because we have a talent problem. When I was chief people officer of tech companies, we always wanted to hire US leaders who had built bigger than Canadian companies. So we kind of had a scaling issue in Canada. And equally, I know US folks want to hire Canadians, but they don't really know how besides hiring an agency recruiter. And so if there was a way to connect all the cities together and we could share opportunities, we can refer one another, we could have leadership conversations, we could support one another and grow. That was supposed to be a huge win because just like you, building a community is one of the hardest things to do out there, but we don't have enough of it, I think.
So let's dig into that.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the reason why? If there was one catalyst that really pushed you to do this, to establish this society and go for it, leading up to June, you said last year?
Yeah.
June 2025?
Yeah.
What was that?
Kind of a long story, but I'll condense it. I think of it as, first I started off in corporate doing HR, didn't love it. Then I did 10 years in venture-backed companies, loved it.
But still growing teams. People ops.
Yeah, people ops, working with founders, CEOs. So mostly they were founders. But somewhere along the line, I felt like it still wasn't enough. There was something dissatisfying about it. And that's not to say I didn't learn a ton. I work with really smart founders. I had a lot of fun. But there was something dissatisfying about it. And I think it was like, I don't think I operated like an employee. I think there are employees and there are builders. And they're two very different things. And so for me, I always used to say when I was in these companies, I was employed by these companies, but I was operating like a builder, as if I was the co-founder. And when you're obsessed that much about building something and you are so adamant that you've got to succeed, when it doesn't succeed, or if it's not good enough for you, because founders are very they have high bar, then I would just destroy myself. Like I took a lot of stress. I felt like no one was working hard enough. No one cared enough. No one is thinking about tomorrow. And that obsession kind of drove me a little bit crazy. And finally, I got to a point where I thought, build your own thing. Go build your own thing. Maybe this is what you need to do. Even if you fail miserably, at least you get it off your chest. I'm not on my deathbed going, I should have tried. Like I could either succeed or fail. And so that's why I think I did it. And if I were going to build my own thing, what would it be? There are opportunities where I could co-found a tech company. Love tech, just don't want to build it. And I thought, what do I enjoy the most so much that I would want to do it for the next 10 years? Because you've got to want to do it for a long time. I love working with leaders. They have the highest level of accountability. And I love a sense of community. And outside of my work at startups, I had my own community. I had my own network. I had my trusted peers. I referred people. I gave backdoor reference checks. It was like a different kind of community outside of work. And I thought, why don't I just formalize that and create my own leadership peer community and kind of open this up to a network of other leaders.
That's interesting. It's interesting because I think people don't actually get the opportunity to assess their network of value often outside of organization, right?
Yeah.
Even any type of leader, any type of like enterprise leader, whether you're a startup or you're like running a $1 billion company, it's kind of the same thing. You're doing your job. And outside of that, you don't think of your peeps as relevant to your career.
Yeah.
Often cases.
Yeah.
But then you start scratching the surface and you realize, wow, well, these people should all know each other. And it's not just about, the occasional whatever, brunch or a movie or social engagement.
Yeah. And I also hated networking like at a conference.
Yeah.
Or you kind of go to those like big events where there's like 500 people in a room, you got a name tag and you're like, hi, what do you do? Like just, you can't even really get to know anybody in those environments. No. I kind of really loved intimate circles, a small private room, 12 people at a table.
Totally.
And you get to leave knowing everyone's name and you can talk more deeply. And I think we talked about this earlier. It's like a lot of people don't share what they're really thinking. They're very closed off. They're afraid of what people will think. When you're in a small, intimate gathering, people tend to open up more.
Right.
And I think that's super important for hiring,
yeah,
for working with people, trusted peers that you want to be around. You've got to have some sort of trust where you've opened up enough that you could say, oh, I want to work with this person, right?
Right.
You can't really tell in the interview either. It's too formal.
Yeah, conventional interviewing process is like, I was just telling someone who works at a bank or was working at a bank for many years in Georgia and is now in Canada to, for a better life for her family. And she was senior in marketing at a bank. And she said, all I see are like closed doors in Canada. because I've sent out so many resumes and I'm like, I'm sorry to say it, but that's your problem.
Yeah.
Who do you want to meet? I'll connect you with someone.
Mm-hmm.
80% of all jobs are filled through connectivity or
Yep.
whatever number we want to,
Mm-hmm.
pull out of our ass. But yeah, man, it's about connectivity, and there's a lot of power in people letting their guards down to be open.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so inspired by that type of connectivity, you started crafting what this society would be.
Yeah.
What was your initial expectation of the people that you were, bringing into this
Mm-hmm.
to contribute?
Yeah, when I first talked about this idea, I shared it on LinkedIn. Hey,
Okay.
I'm thinking of building this community. If you're interested, fill out this form. So in 30 days, I had 600 people fill it out. And I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot of people looking for a community.
Wow.
Yeah. And I read through every single, piece of feedback.
Was it a short form or a long form? Was it the one-click LinkedIn resume send?
No, it was a Google form with about 8 questions. What's your job title? Why are you interested? What can you give to this society? And I'm very much about, if someone wants to join 529 Society, first I want to know, what can you give? Because everyone wants to get, right? And unless you're giving something, there's no value in that community. So I looked at the first 600. A lot of them were junior. At the time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to build a leadership community or just a community.
Sure.
If I just open up a community and let's say I charge like a SaaS model, a monthly fee, $30, I think I could have had thousands of members by now. But that's not what I wanted to build. I love working with leaders. I think there was something unique about having a very confidential network where you can get the information that you need. So you can't just look on LinkedIn and look at recommendations and go, oh, this person looks like a good CFO. I'm going to hire them. Look at all these nice things people said. That's all bullshit. Some of the recommendations I've seen on LinkedIn were from CEOs who had fired that person for performance. But, you're doing the good deed. You're putting in a recommendation so they could get a new job. And so LinkedIn is just notorious for fake recommendations. I wanted real recommendations, real referrals, real networks where if I said to somebody, look, I'm looking for a really world-class CFO, they'll go, hey man, out of the 30 that I know, I would only recommend 2. Right. Those are the 2 that I want. So a very exclusive community that mimicked sort of like the community and network that I had built outside of work.
Right.
Where we can trust one another, that you would only refer the best of the best. And every operator that comes in, I do reference checks on them. So I'll basically say like, hey, can I get 2 reference checks from your previous 2 bosses? Usually it's the CEO. Mm-hmm. And that way, if everyone gets a reference check, it really means that you could refer anybody in the network because they've all been they've been vetted, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a confidential hush hush. And I wasn't out there to build something like YPO or Chief. I don't need 50,000 members. What I'm really looking for is an exclusive community of what I consider the best of the best, people who want to learn and share with others, but also who care deeply passionate about the work that they do. Mm-hmm. That it's not just a job. It's truly something that they love and want to be really good at. And a sense of community where you bring all these great, smart people together and they want to help one another. I don't think we really have that. I don't think that, even in your workplace, you can't truly be yourself in your workplace. And I'm saying this not just as an ex-chief people officer, but as a human being. You can't really be yourself. I couldn't just be myself and walk into an office and say what I want to say, because that is also another social community. It's your workplace and you're not on an island. You're not a consultant kind of working on your own. And so the only safe space you have is something outside of work. It's an outside community, which is sort of like a confidential network of your own, right? But is not tied to the rewards of your work.
And the difficult thing for most people, of course, is they live in 2 worlds. So it's like home and work. And that third space is what you're creating opportunity for people to experience. And this goes back to that whole thing of not necessarily, people don't necessarily look at their network of connectivity and say, oh, these are the people I can talk to about the things I can't talk to my wife or my spouse, right? Who are going to be able to give me critical feedback or the connectivity and stuff. So it does take someone to build that community. Yeah, and I applaud the kind of efforts to keep it intimate and keep the power of trust there.
Yeah.
What did it look like from a business modeling standpoint before you started sending back the approval letters?
Yeah. So I was thinking, okay, first I thought, like, should I charge a monthly fee? And I thought, no, because then people won't be committed. They'll drop in, drop out. I want people that are committed. You can't, you meet Fred this month and Fred's gone next month. Like, it's too much. It's like, I don't want vagabonds. I want real people that want to stick around. So you have to pay up front. It is an annual fee. And it's not cheap by any means. So it's 5,000 USD.
Okay. For the year.
For the year.
Okay.
Pays for all the events that you go to. So again, private dinners. You're not getting a table at the Keg. You're going to a private room, 12 to 15 people. And each dinner is curated, a specific topic, curated guest list. And we might bring in some external guests, subject matter experts, to talk about a very specific topic. And so it feels exclusive. It feels unique and special. The room is quiet. And I recently, after I had tested out some private rooms at restaurants, I went, no, I need something better than this. So I got a membership at a wine club.
Yeah.
And it's Vintage Conservatory. And the great thing about...
On the new one or the one?
The one at
Lombard?
Yorkville.
Okay.
Yorkville, because it's quieter there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this room, like it's like soundproof.
Yeah.
So I got the membership there, and that way I can just talk to one contact person, get the dinners set up, the room set up the way I want. For me, I think if you're an executive and you don't have a lot of time outside of work, because maybe work takes 80 hours of your time in a week.
Yeah.
If you do go to an event, you want to go to an event that's worth it.
Oh, 100%.
Right? You want good food. You want it to be quiet so you don't have to yell across the table.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be seated with people that you would genuinely want to be seated with. And maybe a nice glass of wine.
Yeah.
Great.
Not from Niagara.
Not from Niagara. No, let's talk European. You know, it's like, it's got to be tasteful. It's got to be fun. It's got to be people that you would want to sit next to. And every dinner I plan it. Everyone's like, oh, isn't that a lot of work? Are you going to hire someone to do that? And I'm like, no, I want to do it. I actually enjoy it.
It's your job.
It's my job. I vet every single person. When I worked at startups, I wanted to interview every person that gets approved by their hiring manager to come into the company. They say do unscalable things if you want to really grow a company. I can do unscalable things, and I don't want to give up the things that really matter when you're building a company. And so for me, I vet every member. I do the reference checks. I don't hire someone to do it. I don't do a background check company. I call the CEO. I ask them the questions. And it's not, hey, tell me about this person. I say, would you publicly endorse this person? Would you stand and back this person up with your reputation on the line?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, wow, what kind of a reference check is this? And I'm like, well, I'm not hiring them. This is a character reference.
Right.
This is performance-based. Like, we want high performers here. And essentially, this is your reputation. Because I'm going to tell everybody, I did a reference check, and you were the person that did the reference check. Like, you gave the reference. And they take it quite seriously. And so that's something I think is important.
Are there any anecdotes you could share of things that were said about some of the members?
Good or bad?
Either. Let's do one of each.
You know, there were a couple that weren't that great. So some of the references were like, I really want to, it's not just performance, but it's character too. So I don't care if you're like the best CFO in the world, but you're a slimy person, you're a compulsive liar.
You kick cats when you cross.
Yeah. We don't want those kind of people. And I'm not saying that I want to hire everybody who's like a priest either. I'm saying that you have moral character. Like, leaders have to have moral character. You can't just be skilled and good at your job, but people can't stand you because you're so fake and you're so performative. Like, you genuinely have to have character. And some of these people didn't. And so for me, I don't want to bring those people in. They could go join another community, maybe a community that doesn't do reference checks. That's okay. But this is important. Some of the good references that came in were like, I love it when I hear founders say like, I couldn't have done what I did without this person. They genuinely bled for the company. Like it was almost like they were a co-founder. Like those are the kind of people that I want to bring in because everyone wants to work with someone like that, right?
Sure, yeah.
And they're not easy to find. And so now in my heart of hearts, I wanted to bring in members who could look at the community and go, now I'm going to introduce them to my own personal network because each person comes with a personal network. And they could refer them, they could recommend them. There are silent job searches everywhere that people don't know about. It's not on LinkedIn. They're hushed in the background.
Right.
They will refer people. This morning, I saw a comment on our online community about, hey, could I talk to someone who can give some funding advice for business, selling a business? And someone put up their hand and said, hey, I've done that. Let's get on a call. Like now there's a private community where members can support one another. And I love that. That's what I wanted to build. And now that we're starting to add more people, it's starting to happen, right?
So let's talk about, okay, on that business modeling thing, you pay $5,000, you get accepted in because you're an awesome person who is ripe for contributing, and you've been vetted. Is that fee including the invite to the dinners or the food?
Everything.
Oh, including the food as well.
And the drinks.
What, for a monthly event for the year?
It's not monthly. So because it's curated, so what I say is expect 4 to 6 dinners a year.
Love it. Okay.
So think of it like every other month.
Yeah.
Minimum. There's some people that are like, there's some members that haven't come out to a dinner yet because they're so busy.
Right.
And I said, try to come out once a quarter at least, right? They're like, okay, tell me the next date. I'll come to that one. But we have online events as well. We do private fireside chats. So I get founders to speak on a Zoom meeting and, ask them questions. I said, be authentic, be honest. It'll never be shared publicly, but I'll record it for our members.
Yeah.
And our members can ask you questions at the end. So it's kind of cool. It's like a podcast that's live, but then you also get to ask a question.
Nice.
So some of the guests that we've had have shared very honest, authentic content. They've talked about their trials and tribulations, their childhoods, what brought them to their knees, just big stories like that. And our members were able to ask questions, and it's really helped because there's a lot of people that are currently working for companies right now, but are thinking of branching off on their own and doing their own thing. So it's a great learning experience. And I tend to do a lot of surveys at the end of like each quarter. And I'll say, what did you love the most? Do you love the dinners? Do you love the fireside chats? Like definitely those two things go hand in hand. We have masterminds, like I mentioned to you. So the masterminds are remote. We get together with a cluster of like 6 to 8 people, small cohorts where someone sits in a hot seat and they talk about the problem that they're trying to solve this month. And it could be anything. It could be, I don't know, a executive colleague that you're not getting along with. It could be you're on a new job search and you don't want your CEO to know. It could be, you want to start a new business and you need a co-founder. So each person will kind of ask questions, share insights, provide introductions, share experiences, and then we do a follow-up the following month before we go on to the next person. So that's been something that we've been piloting for the past, I think, like 4 months now. And it's been really rewarding for a lot of our members because they have no one else to really talk about these kind of things with.
Soundboard particular issues.
Yeah, with executive leaders.
Right. People you could trust their opinions. It's not just like YouTubing something.
Yeah.
Watching Alex Hormozy tell you everything you need to know about business over and over again in his wife beater.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned an online community, but you also talked about hosting these sessions on Zoom that are remote.
Yeah.
So where have you, in looking at a tool set that you could use, a digital tool set to support your community online and stitch the cities together?
Yeah.
How far have you gone down that rabbit hole? What have you seen of tools that can support online communities?
So that's a really good question. So when I was first launching this, I did some research and I'm like, okay, the 2 tools out there that most people seem to use are Mighty Networks and Circle.
Right.
And then when I looked at like, what do I need for this community? I went with Mighty Networks.
Okay.
So Mighty Networks has sort of like, it's got your like Slack channel. It's got, the things that I need, like membership renewals and all that stuff happening in the background, the Stripe integration and all of that. But you can also create like as many channels as you like. So we have different channels for different, like we have like partnership discounts. Click into that tab. We have specific channels for each tier. So everyone pays $5,000, but you belong to one tier.
Okay.
If you're a founder and CEO, you're with the founder and CEOs. If you're an operator, you're with all the operators. We have one tier called consigliaries, which is more like consultants, solopreneurs, coaches, and people who are kind of like advisors. They kind of sit in one tier. They're privy to the whole group.
Okay, because they can help all of these people.
Exactly. But they also have their private little tier where they could get together, do coffee chats and things like that. And it's worked out okay. The only thing I learned though, and you learn as you do, is executives don't have time to sit there on Slack channels all day. Right. So it's relatively quiet except when someone needs something.
Yeah.
So if someone needs something, they'll say, hey, I'm doing a confidential search for my company. We're looking for a new CFO. If you have any introductions or referrals, please send them my way. 2-3 people might respond and say, yep, I've got someone in my network. Let me reach out to you. So in that sense, it works. But I've seen Slack channels where I've had to drop off because it's pinging every minute.
Right. Yeah.
And I always just wonder, do people not work? I guess not.
Yeah.
They're on Slack all day, right? Yeah, executives don't do that.
It's tough. I mean, yeah, they're all on LinkedIn all day.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, I've been thinking about this a lot, especially since LinkedIn changed its kind of interface during the pandemic to mimic the old Facebook web interface when Facebook changed.
Yeah.
That's when Facebook had all this drop off. I think it was 2021. It was this like little subtle thing that LinkedIn adopted the River of News kind of default interface. Mm-hmm. And turned on a few other media formats to enable more engagement, mm-hmm. right? With the nature of posts and move away from just the resume kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then everyone moved over and started activating. Mm-hmm. So it's only been a few years, but it's become so integral, right?
Yeah.
In the business community. And I think the number one thing that I'm seeing people use it for outside of like posting is really just about like messaging, right? Mm-hmm. And it's super interesting to think that people want to activate networks of trust. We see this with the popularity of LinkedIn in the last few years. We see this with like joint threads, like all the time, making introductions within you, like, hey, you should meet this person, starting a new messaging thread on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And there's immediate context. And I think that's the other side to it, to the trust, to like kind of like to add further validity, maybe, mm-hmm. you can look the person up, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to an email thing. Like back in the day, you just do a little email introduction to someone.
Yeah.
And that's funny because I still do email introductions out of habit.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do them, I'm purposefully obtuse. Like some people do introductions and they'll give context. You should meet this person because of these 3 things.
Yeah.
I'm like, you two should meet.
Done.
Yeah, because my introduction should be worth something.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason there. Figure it out. You'll figure out more than me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to hear that you went with
Mighty Networks.
Mighty Networks.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to say Ning because that is the same founder as Ning.
Oh, really?
Do you remember Ning?
No.
Okay, so Ning I'm thinking back to, I might get this wrong, but I think it's around 2004, 2003, maybe?
That was a lot.
Pretty early.
Yeah.
Ning was interesting because it was a startup that was trying to create like a network of networks. And it was like community, as a service, SaaS model, first ever hosted social network platform kind of thing. And it's pretty popular, but it was pretty functionally limited, I think. And it was ahead of its time in a way. And I only know about this because my studio Design Guru actually used to build kind of like private intranets. Mm-hmm. So we were in that space, but we'd build them local to an organization after what I was telling you before we jumped on the camera,
Yeah.
this like deep analysis of cohorts and stakeholders.
Yeah.
We'd look at like digital familiarity and adoption.
Yeah.
What are the staff or what are the like community members already using across devices, and how comfortable will they be with certain interfaces before we even rolled up our sleeves to design them? So in that world of very like, customized solutions for intranets, the SaaS model seemed like kind of like cheap and cheerful for people. So I think adoption wasn't really there.
Yeah.
But yeah, second stab is this company. And so the founder's been working on this problem for a couple decades.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's hands-on too. She does like, for members, like she'll do these like online, like lives, and you could get on and ask questions. They do a lot of like community stuff as well, because there's a lot of people on there that kind of have built their own communities and they're like solopreneurs. But I mean, I'm probably not using it to its full capability.
Well, because it sounds like this is some of the pitfalls of these, like if you have a executive level community of, yes, busy people that have commitments, the interfaces, it's very difficult to offer a digital interface that is immediately fulfilling.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this problem a lot for a long time, for at least 3 decades, right? Especially now, though, it's become more pertinent in the last couple of years as we've seen the question of trust erode online.
Yeah.
And of course, with political and geoeconomic fluidity in the last year especially, right? Most people I talk to don't know where to turn.
Yeah.
For our audience, today is particularly auspicious to talk about this issue of like verity in information sourcing, right? And networks of trust, where like the Wall Street Journal today laid off 300 journalists.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like over a third of their entire staff, I believe. And then a lot of these like were journalists and newsroom people. And that's just one example of this, like, journalistic output is increasingly decreasing. And even if people save their careers by going to Substack as individual reporters, that network effect of a publication isn't there. And I've talked to many, many leaders in the last decade about this problem of not having veritable sources of information.
Yeah.
And now, okay, there's first person data, there's news reportage, but then there's also this network of trust thing. Like, what's your read on this? What's your read on this? What's happening in your industry? That's where networks are becoming increasingly more powerful, right?
Yeah.
However, yes, to design an interface that both curates third-party data and offers the ability for a network of people to provide value in combination with that curated data, it's a difficult problem interface-wise.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen anyone in that whole digital community space crack it.
Yeah, me neither.
Like,
tough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like, even, I don't know, I mean, like now I'm just kind of riffing, reminiscing about the old days on the internet, but like, if you look at this idea of the power of curation, every week, I watch so much cool shit on YouTube. At least what I think is cool shit. It's both informative or it's inspirational or, whatever. And I know many people that I know would enjoy what I watch, but they'll never find it because the algorithm's going to bury it from them.
Yeah.
So it always reminds me that, like, as I share each link, and I know that when I do, it won't be watched because it feels like a big commitment. We're getting into another era here where just because I'm sharing something that is valuable to someone, they have to make time for it. And no one has any time. Yet they do have time if the algorithm feeds it to them.
Yeah, that's true.
That's this latest twist in the digital consumption story of media.
Because you're at the moment, it just fed it to you. So you're like watching it. But like, I recently joined Substack. It was like a year ago. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend more time on Substack because I don't like LinkedIn anymore. So I'm on Substack, and then I'm following all these people, and then they're following me back. And then like, they're subscribing to my Substacks, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I got to subscribe back to them. And now I'm looking at my subscription thing and I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm ever going to read all this stuff. There's like, I think like a 40 subscriptions now. I'm like, this, like, even though it's like maybe 5 minutes to read each article, like who has the time for that, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, there's too much information out there, but I wish I could be on a platform where there was more honesty and truth.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is performative junk. I say this all the time, and I can't get rid of it because that's where majority of my business comes from. And we validate people like, Kasim, who is he? I'll go on LinkedIn and go, oh, okay, he's the founder of Startwell. Like I wouldn't have known that without LinkedIn. So everyone needs a LinkedIn, but I don't love LinkedIn.
Right.
And I think that I've seen personas on LinkedIn where there are some people on LinkedIn who are very honest and they seem authentic and they share a lot, but then I meet them and I'm like, you're so fake. You're not a person.
Oh, 100%.
LinkedIn, right? It's like you see the true character of them and you're like, okay, you're a totally different person. And so where do you go to find authentic content?
Right. It's a big problem.
I know.
Like there isn't a place. I I keep looking for that place as well. And I know this might connect with the younger members of the audience, but like I'm down with YouTube these days in a big way, you know?
Yeah.
And there's something curious about YouTube. It takes a little bit of hacking to find great stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you're a premium member, the algo doesn't work the same way as if you're being fed ads.
Oh.
Because the algo is built around feeding you ads, right?
Yeah.
And why would it keep you, as a premium subscriber, that much more entertained?
Yeah.
For $9 a month or whatever I pay, like
Yeah.
it should be $100 and give me exactly what I want all the time.
Is it really $9 a month?
I think when I started it was, yeah, it was $8.99, and I don't know if they've increased it.
They must have.
I have no idea. I mean, I just pay for these things. I probably pay more today for digital subscriptions on YouTube. Oh no, on Apple TV, like all my different channels.
I know.
Than I ever did for cable. But without digressing too far, I think why I particularly like YouTube and a lot of people turn to it now is the instant authenticity that you can verify as an audience member with the host. For the most part, like talking about YouTube format content.
Yeah.
Not just like repurposed catalog content or news or Jimmy Kimmel, right?
Yeah.
Even Jimmy Kimmel, I mean, that's a talk show.
Yeah.
But seeing people talk to camera, talk to you as the audience, you can verify whether you like that person and whether they're speaking about things that are interesting to you pretty quick. But yeah, we haven't entered in this new era of digesting that content en masse. It's still pretty linear. You're going to watch a video from start to finish. You might skip forward, speed read it, and go to something else afterwards. But yeah, seeing a summary of like 10 videos to then build maybe even a playlist for the week. It's funny, the platform is not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But those are the sorts of things that I think will become increasingly valuable. Digests and further curation. But anyway, without going into the world of media, I think this is just further to say that IRL connectivity is becoming far more precious, right? And the validity is in being able to develop the community. So let's talk about how across Canada, members are being attracted to your network, to your society, and where you're seeing if there's any trends across the country in the different cities and the different way that people are looking for connection.
Yeah. So we get new members either through LinkedIn, because that's where they kind of find the content, or our members will refer in new members. And in our online community, like I have a channel where I'll say like, these are the kind of members that we want to bring in. So refer people like this.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's really great.
And these are the kinds of people we don't want.
Yeah.
So I do decipher it. And I'm pretty like honest about it. Like what we want is like VP level and above. You can't talk about something with a assistant manager in the room. Like everyone's probably reporting to a CEO or they've
reported
reported
to
a
network.
board. Exactly. It's also it's really important to have confidentiality. So like if you're with peers and you're all at the same level and you've kind of gone through the same things, you're going to keep things confidential because you're with people at your level. What we don't want is people that are from different industries that we can't help, like government, not-for-profit, hospitals, manufacturing. Like those aren't the high growth kind of organizations that we could kind of have conversations with. You know, someone who's going through a wildcat labor dispute, that would not be something we could help. But we have a good blend of people who come from venture-backed companies like startups, as well as people who come from more mature companies or large corporations. So we have people from Interac, Visa, Vimo. They might be head of fintech. They might be head of creative. Then we have people from venture-backed tech companies from the early stages to maybe Series C, D. And so it's a really good blend. And I think we all kind of go through the same challenges and we're kind of struggling through the same things. So what I really think about is I could have created a community of just CHROs. I could have created a community just for founders. There's a lot of communities like that. The only reason I didn't do that is someone already built it, it's already existing. But I go back to my role as an ex-chief people officer. When I was in that role, the biggest issue I found with the founders that I worked with is they're really good founders. They know how to raise capital. They know how to build a company. But what they didn't know well was how to work with other executives.
Right.
They didn't truly understand what a CMO does, what a CHRO does.
No one knows what a CMO does.
Yeah, no one. You're right. No one. And it was because they were too ingrained in a founder society. So all the founders like, hey, buddy, I'll show you how to raise capital. Let me introduce you to the VCs. But they didn't spend time with CMOs. They didn't go chummy chums with the CHRO. They don't really know what CROs do. So they're kind of lacking that knowledge. And as a founder, if you don't know what your executives are doing, it's hard for you to scale the company. So in the early years, seed to say Series B, you can still be gritty and, you know, hands-on and figure things out as they come. But as you're scaling into Series C, D, E, and you're going to go public, you've got to kind of elevate yourself to an operating CEO.
Sure.
And if you haven't spent enough time with some of those leaders, you're just really a founder that's growing in this maturing organization. And so I wanted to create a society that really brought all these experts together, and you can truly learn a lot from one another. So founders, they should definitely have their founders community, but you should also be part of a community where you're with these other leaders because they are your stakeholders. They are the people at your round table, right?
You know, it's very interesting because this topic keeps coming up in conversations with me, partly because, you know, as a bootstrapped entrepreneur and someone who's got skin in the game now, like in this brand for 9 years, right? You know, it's long teeth compared to most startups.
Yeah.
And we're revenue financed. It's business. I tell people I run a business. I'm a businessman.
Yeah.
And I find that there's very few people that can lay that claim these days in Canada that I meet, especially that service other business people, you know. We're in hospitality. Of course, we're in this unique niche, right, at Startwell. So we have throughput of business people into our doors to gather their teams for internal corporate sessions and then clients and outward facing events as well. So we get a really good lens on how business is being conducted in Toronto in many ways. Specifically speaking to this, how organizational behavior is manifested.
Yeah.
And who are the stewards of culture within organizations? It's such a great big question because typically that's not in a job description. You know, even if you're in a people organization, very few organizations will spend money on what are seen as intangible values for a team.
Yeah.
At least that's from my lens. We're seeing that maybe changing and very slowly, but it's been catalyzed with the pandemic a little bit perhaps, and with remote work and hybrid teams. Who's going to keep track of all these people, and how do we know they're going to come together? So you've seen like people and culture maybe as a title emerge, but what I keep ruminating on, which is kind of speaks to the community values of diversity that you're talking about, role diversity being part of people's peer group.
Yeah.
Nobody teaches business. Like recently I've talked to a few people that run management faculties at different universities even in Canada, and like about in the last 20, 30 years since I was at university, how have things evolved? Are you still teaching about managerial hierarchies? Are you talking about flat organizations now?
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of it is still old world, you know, they didn't revise the textbook.
Yep.
And, you know, and that's kind of part of the thing of like startup culture and the getting started versus being established. And that dichotomy should never exist. And in Canada, maybe particularly exists more than elsewhere.
Yeah.
So what do you find even from your, I know it's young, like you started this last summer, but in your community that's growing, what are people saying about the discovery process that they're going through in learning about company building, particularly when it comes to this, like this idea of like, I'm building an organization and where they turn to learn outside of your community? Where do people learn business from, especially if they're first or second time founders to, you know, and there's like, what is a team? How many different business units do I need? What do those business units do?
That's a good question. I think people learn from people they feel comfortable with. So let's say founders. They typically have their founders peer community, or they have an executive coach. And the executive coach was probably referred to them by some other founder. And so they try to learn from there. There are executives who are learning from maybe their peers, a CMO with a CMO community, maybe salespeople in Pavilion, things like that. But no matter what you learn, every organization is different and unique. And what you learned from an individual or an institution might not be able to be applied in this company, right? So I think the greatest influence of how companies scale, how they grow, how you build culture, how you get these intangibles is through the founder. At the end of the day, even though they have an executive team and the founder sits here, the founder is the CEO, the decision maker, the final person who, you know, puts his stamp on stuff or her stamp. And so founder has this huge responsibility to curate the culture, to create that operating clock, how quickly we move, how you hire people, what the performance bar level is. And so there's a huge responsibility there. But I just find that a lot of startups stall. Like there are a lot of startups that seem to be like scaling and then sometimes they fall off a cliff. And I think it's because they get to a point where building a company seems really easy and then it's not. It's
easy when you got free money.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's more money, more problems too, right?
True. But like, this is like, from my lens, this is a thing that's a little crazy to me. I don't know. I mean, this might be this kind of like sweat equity generational knowledge, but like, you know, for hundreds of years in my family, perhaps we've all been sweat equity traders, you know, base level hustlers, you know, in some fashion. It's a different kind of way of doing business than raising capital and then using that as leverage to grow before you can monetize your service or product offering, right? But I find that, you know, so I've always had a moral ambiguity to raising capital for a venture, because I would only take on a capital investor if I know that I could use that capital as leverage to get far beyond, at a calculatable output, far beyond where I can, you know, slowly grow through revenue too.
Yeah.
But 99% of the people I meet in venture-backed companies don't even think about that. So here's like this mental arithmetic I keep giving people in the last couple of years who cite Uber as an inspirational story. I say, well, that company's not net cash flow positive. And they're like, no, but it is. It's like they have like 20, 30% like returns. What do you mean? The stock's doing good. I'm like, yeah, but all the people that got that company to public without the pump and dump side of it and like getting their money out when it went public, like the street who paid for those people to get their money out are not going to earn their money back.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I mean, how much went into, I guess the point is the revenues of that company will never pay out the initial investment. It's the people who held the equity after the fact that paid for the first guys to get out, right? And yet you look at the societal transformation that company's muscling into markets has affected. It's massive, right? If you look at how transportation industry has changed, gig economy has created a new slave labor force. And all of these societal factors, ripple from not having to respond immediately to the market because you don't need to be answerable to customers. So I find this as a really interesting thing when you look at venture and you assess the culture of these companies, when the starting point is growing into a role that seems to legitimize your market position before you can earn it. And that's a fascinating question, right? Because then what's the commitment, to the mission? And what mission is there?
Well, don't you think companies now are going to be built differently with AI, with removing hierarchies, with no longer celebrating our 1,000th hire? Being profitable, being lean, being small is the new thing.
Okay, so I was just having a conversation with Ritesh from Pulse Code, who's literally his office is underneath us. One of the last few offices at Starbucks yesterday. And it is a fascinating discussion to have because on one hand, the output of that conversation was, okay, the turning effect of artificial intelligence means, at least for software companies, that absolutely high-performing orchestrators can create, what would you call it? I don't know, agentified solutions, right? Architecture that performs at the 100 to 1,000 staff coding level, right? 100%. And the code can write code. You still have to kind of manage that. And you're not using Lovable to build it. You're using other stuff and you need a no code. So for sure, the bottom will fall out in engineering heavy businesses. But that still means that the solutions, so forget about the cost of creating the solution, that the solution still needs to service the client and be monetizable or not. And that's the interesting thing. If software becomes plumbing and the bottom falls out entirely from the software industry, and you can pretty much spin up any solution for the cost of what was a website from some 24-year-olds that made WordPress stuff. What does that mean? I think it's quite exciting because it also can mean that you'll see a lot of perhaps bootstrapped companies emerge that are using all these tools as tools and using software as tools to create solutions. So, I mean, this is the thing, is that within startups, the venture ecosystem seems like it's all encompassing, right? But from outside of the startups, if you look at any other, if talk to any other business operator in conventional industries and extractive industries, even in finance, in hospitality, any brick or mortar thing, they don't understand that whole startup mindset.
I know.
And within the startup mindset, what everyone is doing collectively through the availability of venture capital seems all-encompassing and super important, right? And software, some people still believe software is going to change the world, right? My little bit of code is going to do it, And yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think it's really interesting because it doesn't, right? The mass majority of venture investments are duds. The mass majority of all software companies that are early stage and hypothesis level will fail.
Well, you know what else I think? So if companies are getting leaner and AI agentic bots are taking over, so what happens to the role of the executive who no longer has a team of 50, 75 people, who no longer has the VP, the director, the manager? So where does the value lie? If I could build a company, instead of having 1,500 people, if I could just have 15 and I could pay each one like an executive,
right?
I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
Because in the olden days, you had to become a manager to move up the ladder, to get your private parking spot, to get the 6-figure salary. And even for myself, I never wanted to be a manager. I mean, I never wanted to manage people. And the reason why is I didn't enjoy it. And it was like forced on me. Like
what was the largest size of team that you managed?
Maybe a team of 20, 25, which is not that big because HR teams are pretty lean, but it was still big. Like if you think of most companies, you could probably do well with 5 people in HR, right?
Right.
So it was quite large, and I never wanted to manage people. The CEO that I work with said, well, too bad. You don't have to update your LinkedIn, but you're going to become a leader. And so I did it out of necessity, but I didn't enjoy it. And I always used to think, why does it have to be that way? Why can't we be exceptionally smart, be individual contributors, and be able to build things without having teams, large teams? Because managing people really sucks.
Yeah. Managing people really sucks.
It does.
And massive organizations become about managing people.
Yeah.
Often cases, it becomes like, okay, so we were saying this, right, before we jumped in studio, is this idea of kind of like, let's say there's 2 modalities in organizational structure. There's vertical hierarchies and then there's flat organizations, okay? So we're going to simplify this and make it a binary thing. And let's say we're moving from this to this. Well, the problem with this is that it necessarily can't be too large because communication breaks down. So by necessity, like it has to be small for people to have autonomy and still own what they need to get done using whatever tool set, whether that's AI or whether it's small like ninja teams of top performers or whatever. So I like that. I mean, and I think this is the thing. I think in the next 10 years, personally, my crystal ball is that we'll see further collapse of megacorps in terms of headcount, because the money's not necessarily there. And you'll see an abstraction from the public market, a little bit more. We're already seeing that. This keeps coming up. I think it's 2 years running now on the TSX. We've had more delists and take privates than lists. So that does speak to some degree, at least locally, about what's happening, right? Private equity or whoever buying back, or some sort of weird M&A process of like people trying to stay relevant by buying the top performing stock. But so I think we're seeing all this flux happen where things are going to go niche and micro format a little bit. And then the big guys are going to be in everything. So who knows what that means, but I do think that like we should see technological advancements of the last 3 years is terribly exciting as entrepreneurs for being able to create new solutions and even workflows. Like if we talk about AI, like how are you using AI in anything?
I think of AI as automating a lot of the drudgery work that you don't want to do, but I would never replace it for the creative stuff.
So as a community developer in your work, how are you using AI?
I use it to basically, so let's say in order to attract people into 529 Society, let's say I have a newsletter and I will draft out my newsletter, but then I might put it into AI and say, just give me snippets now so I could share this on LinkedIn or something. So I don't want to take away the creativity that I can give, but I want it to do the drudgery work. So if I think about in the next 5 to 10 years when the world changes, because AI is going to dramatically change the way companies are built, all these people are so afraid that jobs are going to be eliminated, and they're already being eliminated. But what if you eliminated all those shitty jobs and all these people got different jobs that were better, where they could be more creative, where they don't have to be a manager, they're actually building something on their own, where every job is valuable, you're not a cog in the wheel, right? That could be a great thing. It's just we can't even imagine it because this is the way we've lived for the past 50, 100 years, right? So it's just like, I see the future as something that could be really exciting and different. But right now, people are just so afraid because they're holding on for dear life in the old order of the world, right? But the old order needs to die. It sucks. Like, I know I keep saying that, but it's true. Like, nobody enjoys being layered. Nobody wants to be a cog in the wheel. Nobody wants to be managed. Everyone wants to be a free spirit and do their own thing. And everyone wants to be creative and everyone wants to build. So then do it. And we could maybe have smaller companies with just a scatter of people doing really valuable things instead of large monolith companies doing crappy jobs, you know? And I think about, you know, maybe the first 10 years of my life doing all the crappy jobs, you know, the grunt work, the admin stuff, the getting the coffee for everybody, like all the stuff that we don't want to do. Let the machines do it, right?
It's funny. Machines will certainly enable teams to be more efficient at applying their talents, their real talents, the humanity of it all, right? Connectivity, creativity. It's going to take a massive learning curve. And also, I think we need to call out the context. We are speaking about Canada, Canada.
Yeah.
It's important to call that out because I think, one, I mean, we have a global audience, but also, they have to also understand that in Canada, we are a primarily monopolistic society, 9-to-5 society. So it's great that you've named your society that.
5 to 9.
It's where you go after work,
Yeah.
aside from work.
Well, like if I go to other places when I travel, there is a community after 5 p.m. So let's say you go to Paris. They've got the cafe community. All the happy hour starts at 5. Maybe it starts at 3. But they're all out there having their cocktails and everything. New York, bar scene. Absolutely. Asia. It's 24 hours. I have friends who moved to Canada and maybe they came from Europe or Asia and they went, I'm so depressed. And I said, why? And they said, people just sit at home all day after they get off work. They go straight home. They watch TV or go on the internet. And then they go to bed and it's like rinse and repeat. They go, there is no culture after work. People don't go out and grab a drink with friends. They go, it's dead. And I said, for sure, that's true, 100%. I had many people who immigrated here and then left and went back. So after all that process of, they went back. And I think about COVID really showed us what it could be, like just living at home and rotting. And then when COVID ended, the pandemic ended, and I thought life was going to go back to the way it was. It never did. I started reading all these articles and it said like average North American has reduced their networking and socialization by up to 25%. I feel it. I see it. And this is where, as an ex-chief people officer, I had the conversations one-on-one in my HR office. People are isolated. They're depressed. They're going to therapy. They are on prescription medications. There are a vast number of people that are so miserable. And sometimes when I talk to a founder and they're like, I'm depressed, Christine. And I go, when was the last time you went out? When was the last time you actually saw people, especially if they're running a remote company? I mean, you need to get out with people. We are pack animals. We are social. We were never meant to be isolated like this. And so, again, going back to 5 to 9 society, a big part of it is in real life communication. I hate Zoom meetings. I hate 50 people on a Zoom meeting and everyone's trying to talk and you're trying to look at people's facial expressions and you're trying not to have resting bitch face because you could see yourself and you're like, I look miserable, so I got to like put on a smile. When you're actually in a room with people, you can be yourself. You can relax. You can have real honest conversations. And that's why when I was working at companies and let's say we had to share dramatic news to the company, maybe our COO is stepping down. The CEO would always say, how should we share this message? And I said, certainly not on a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Let's just gather everyone and just get everyone together and let's talk about it. He's like, live? Like you just want to tell people to get up? I'm like, yeah, because this is hard news.
Right.
And when you are able to do that and you bring people together in a room, physical beings, and you share really hard news, people can see what you're sharing, the expressions on your face, how meaningful it is to you, how this is something that's really important to them and they're looking at you, eye contact, you can see the body expressions and it lands better. And so there's something about like being in a room with real people that I just don't think that remote can ever really replace. Remote's good. Like if I was a newborn like mom and I had a baby and I had to work remotely, great. That would work for me. But in my normal life, I want to be in the office. And maybe not 5 days a week, but if I had to choose remote or 5 days, I'd probably be in the office 5 days.
Like my daughter is nearly 8, and we talk about school every day, and I'm excited for her every day. And we have chats in the evening about what happened, and like, hey, did this happen? And you talk about, and that's fun.
Yeah.
Why the hell are people post school isolating themselves away from fun?
I know.
Why can't work be fun?
Yeah.
We spend all day doing it.
I know.
People should laugh.
It should be fun. That is so true. I've talked to so many founders that I work with where we would talk and we would say, let's make work fun.
Yeah.
Let's make it fun. Let's impromptu. Let's crack open the beers.
Sure.
Hey, let's order pizza. Who wants to stick around after 5? Let's talk about that event coming up.
Right.
Like, it's like, why can't we have fun? And it doesn't always have to be formal and it doesn't always have to be planned. But I just think like even startups are becoming too formal.
Yeah.
Too like planned, we've got to make sure we look like this and we look like that. And people believe that we're scaling properly and all this stuff. And I just think like startups aren't as fun as they could be anymore.
Yeah, here in Canada, definitely.
Yeah, going back to Canada.
The flip side is in America.
I know.
Like, dude, in America, it's the gold rush.
I know.
Just go over to A16Z and be like, bros, we just need like 100 or 150 million to do this thing that we I don't know how we're going to pay for it, but like, can you give us a couple of years of free cash? I said, I need a Lambo too, bro. And they'll be like, yeah, here, let me write you a check.
Okay, so there is truth in what you're saying, okay?
It's crazy.
I find that, and I'm not going to make a Canada-US thing, but maybe I am.
Go for it.
Okay.
Go there.
So when I worked with US companies, and maybe there were portcos that we worked with and everything, the great thing about working with US companies or US executives or US partners was that there was deep trust. They spent money more easily. Maybe they make it more easily, that's why. But they spent money more easily. I remember working with our board of directors, and this was private equity. They would say, how often do you go to the Montreal office? And I would say, well, I try to get there like once a month. They go, that's crazy. They go, you need to go every week. And I go, but like, it's so expensive flying over there every week. And they're like, you have to do it for culture. And they want to see the chief people officer. This is important. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I would do it every week. Then it was like, hey, Christine, we're going to send the COO down. They need to talk to you about this thing that you've done, and they're going to share some insights with you. I'm like, okay, well, why don't we just get on a Zoom call? Like he's in Boston. He doesn't need to fly down just for a one-day meeting. And they're like, but this is important. You're going to build relationships with this person. This person's going to work with you for future endeavors. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Hey, to hang out.
Yeah. And then so I learned very early on that this was important, that spending money to build a business was important.
Yeah.
Now, then when I started working at Canadian-only companies, didn't want to spend a dime on many things. Yeah. Everything was too expensive. Everything must go through approvals. Everything's like just too much. If we can do it in a cheaper way, faster way, less costly way, that's important. Well, you lose the essence of relationships, of meeting with people, the culture building, the trust and bond, right? And you really lost something. So now when I work with US companies, I see a different culture. They're very open about letting people do things. I've worked with US companies where they're like, yeah, fly this person down. This is important. They'll learn something from it. Like it's really, there's not a lot of micromanaging there. And I just find like it's different with Canadian companies.
It's extremely different with Canadian companies for sure. I think the purse strings are tighter. There's that pervasive fear complex that is definitely exacerbated by people's own choice of lifestyle. Like you said, they're on screens far too much. Everyone's susceptible to this routinized life. Well, how do you become an innovator and a creative solution provider if your life is constant routine?
I know.
It's crazy. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And certainly the joy in business is less here than I've seen around the world. Like when at points I was working in Kenya, we had a chef. And the chef, we had a T-boy. I love that word, that phrase. That's probably not politically correct. We had a T-boy and we had a chef. And the T-boy knew whether you wanted tea or coffee and so on before you even sat at your desk. You know, it was brilliant. And you'd invite people for tea to your office or for coffee. And it was a thing. Just like here at Startwell, we have a barista. And so I invite people for coffee and they're so pleasantly surprised that like, hey, wow, you have a barista, you have a full cafe and I don't need to whip on my wallet.
Yeah.
That should be something to be celebrated, those experiences.
Yeah.
And then you add to that, with the meals, like, okay, in Kenya, we could afford a chef. Here, it's a bit expensive. But you know what? On the flip, I don't know how this will sound, but I said this on one of the interviews. I got invited to, I think this is the last time, maybe I'll never get invited again. But like a couple of years ago, I got invited by someone I knew to Google, right, for lunch. And I'm in the habit of inviting people to lunch, taking them to a nearby restaurant or ordering in. If I order in, it's going to be really nice.
Yeah.
Because we should have a good meal, like you said.
Yeah.
If I'm an executive, I run my own company, I have a certain standard that I choose to eat, and I do that at home. I'm a chef. Like I'll make wicked food. Oh my God. So I thought that we were going to meet at Google and go to a restaurant. Oh, let's go to the cafeteria. I'm like, no. Yeah, it's mustard chicken day. No. What am I in residence at university? That's exactly what it felt like. So tacky.
Yeah.
It started the early days of Google, the dry cleaning and all this stuff. It felt like these were great benefits to being an employee. But then you go there and you look at all the lemmings just kind of like clocking in and clocking out and having their free mustard chicken feeling special for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they can't even expense a lunch at a restaurant across the road.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, ugh, this is not a happy place.
No.
So, I mean, I'm sure the cafeteria in the California offices is better. However, but still, it's about the joy of work and relationship, celebrating them in business and business being a conduit for that as well. And this is something where, on one hand, I guess if your whole business is a scale up, startup, whatever, proving the validity of your model, or if all you're concerned with is a revenue function and you're just trying to spend all day closing deals, there's no middle ground.
Yeah.
But we got to live. Like, this is the thing. We got to live. If everything is, in business towards the milestones, you're always racing to get to the milestone. As you race, you can't enjoy the race.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies operate that way and you lose the joy. You do. And I know that a lot of companies are proud of saying that. Like, we fight for another day. We're performance oriented. It's all about the OKRs and the goals and all that. But you lose so much joy because you're doing that day in and day out. There's no relief. There's no end. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no celebration. There's no fun. And so I look at other cultures and I look at other companies. They do celebrate a lot. I even hosted some US companies that came here to Canada and I'm like, okay, so you're going to spend a day with us doing work. And then what are you doing after? They're like, wow, we want to see the city. We're going to check out some cool bars. We did some research. We're going to go to the top, Michelin restaurant. This is all on their company dime, but it's the fun of doing work with people. And I think we've kind of lost that. So we're very conservative here in Canada. Like, hey, if you're going to expense a meal, it's $30 in the, expense manual. And I just think I look at companies that are more open. They get things done faster. They trust their employees more. And you know what? Their revenue is higher.
Definitely, yeah.
Their culture is happier.
Right.
And if I go into those offices, they're loud, they're laughing, they're comfortable. Even if the CEO walks by, they're all laughing and having a good time. Now, I see other companies where the CEO walks by and they're like, no eye contact, quiet, pin drop, the culture is bad. You know that he's watching and they know he's watching. So they're all cautious. Like, who wants to work there for 2-3 years? That's like torture, right? You can work hard and still have fun. Well, why is that? Is that illegal? I don't understand, right?
Yeah.
And I'm HR. I'm HR. People think I'm the the HR
Police.
cop, the police, the not fun crew. But
it should be the inflection of that. It should be the opposite of that. It goes back to that culture. Who's the steward of culture?
Yeah.
What is culture?
Yeah.
Who audits the lifestyle quality of employees to assess what they want the company to be? Well, they're not allowed to because leadership tells us what the company
I know. And that's not to say that I don't care about performance. I do.
Yeah. But it's not exclusive.
It's not exclusive. And I think that if you trust people and get them really passionate about the work that they're doing, they will make the company more successful. But I see a lot of startup founders that want to hire entrepreneurs, maybe someone who's started their own business and decided, now I want to work for a startup, but then they can't handle them.
Right.
They can't handle them being autonomous. They can't handle them making the decisions. They can't handle them making risks. And yet they want to say, we have an innovative culture. We need innovation to flourish so we can build really great products. But then if someone is too innovative, too risky, oh, they can't handle that either, because now that they're taking chances without going through me. They need to manage up to me. So that's a problem too, right? I think there's something about the Canadian working culture that's very different from US. And I can tell, even if I were to send a contract to a US company, they'll sign it off within 24 or 48 hours.
Right.
Canadian, well, we have to think about it.
Okay, I need to talk to this guy. That guy needs to talk to that guy.
Yep.
CFO's on holiday.
Sure, that's a lot of money to spend. I don't know. And I'm just like, oh my God, let's just forget it, right? US, it's so easy. Like, I remember working with somebody, they said, hey, we really want to work with you. Why don't you draft up the contract? So, you want me to draft up the contract? Like, yeah. I'm like, you sure you don't want me to use your template? They're like, no, you draft it up. We'll send it to legal.
Right.
I'm like, all right, well, what are the terms? They're like, you decide. I'm like, I should decide? Okay, well, what about the payment? Like, how much are you going to pay me per month? They're like, you decide based on the work you're going to do. I'm thinking, okay, there's probably going to be 4 or 5 drafts and it's going to go back and forth. No, I sent it to them. They signed off. It's like, there's something to be said about how companies operate and the decisions that they make. And that's just one example.
Right.
They're a much larger company. They're doing this day in and day out in different departments, working with different people, and they're making decisions very quickly.
Yeah.
But a lot of Canadian companies don't do that, I don't think.
From what you're discovering, and it sounds like there's a lot that's also probably coming to the front of mind through this role now, right? Through having conversations with other leaders and jamming on stuff that's like shared knowledge and perspective. What could you recommend to people, especially from the old world, from the people ops world, who might be watching or listening to this, thinking that they would like to develop community within their organization?
If you want to build a community within your organization, you have to have the kind of culture that would be open to it. In the olden days of the HR world, they had like ERGs, employee resource groups. So in corporations, you'll have an ERG, like, let's say the DEI group, the LGBTQ group, whatever. And they get a budget or a stipend, and they have their little communities, like a micro community inside the organization. So companies that allowed them to do that, some companies would be like, it's a free for all. Like the LGBTQ group could do whatever they want. Here's their stipend. They could go out to like a gay bar, whatever it is. But other companies wanted to say they wanted to do a ERG, but then they wanted oversight. And they had all these rules of what you couldn't do and how it must operate. And we need to approve these things. So that's not a real community.
No.
Right? So I always think, like, if you wanted to build a real community, you have to have trust. You could have guidelines, but it shouldn't be the forefront of how the group operates, how the community operates. And to have a really true, genuine community, there has to be honesty. There has to be the ability to speak freely. Otherwise, Big Brother's watching you all the time. Who's going to join that frigging community? I wouldn't.
Right.
So it's just like, I loved companies that were able to be more honest, be more authentic. I hate the performative bullshit companies that think they're like all that, but there's so many rules and everything that everyone's going to talk about what really goes on after 5 o'clock by the water cooler.
Right.
And it's just like, I'm not saying that you have to be so transparent about everything. Because look, I come from HR and I know the legal ramifications. But I do truly believe that there needs to be some level of honesty so that people will trust you. For example, if someone is no longer at the company anymore, some companies will just say, John Smith is no longer with us anymore. And they just end it there. And they've overdone the like, legally, we can't share why. But you know what? If you had 1 ounce of humanity and you understand how people operate, you could share, you know what? It didn't work out. We really believed in John, but unfortunately, we didn't agree on things. And as a result, we believed it was better to part ways.
Turns out he was French.
Yeah, you know? But it's like people aren't idiots. Like you have to be able to treat people like adults.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were things that frustrated me from an HR point of view where I had to operate in a certain way, but I didn't love that.
Right.
And I don't even know how I got into HR. If I'm that type of person who wanted to be more outspoken, who wanted to open the curtains, you know? And it's like, how did I end up in HR? Well, if I'm going to do HR, then I'm going to try to be as transparent as possible. To a certain extent. Sure. I'm going to try to be as human as possible. And that doesn't mean coddling employees. I was tough too. Like I believed in performance and all of that. But I mean like being direct, being honest, right? And I think that most people can handle it, you know? Sometimes the truth hurts though.
The truth hurts. But then again, the meta is that we're going through this correction curve. A lot of change is going to happen.
Yeah. We need to.
We need to.
Yeah.
The world needs change.
We do. Big time. Canada more so than others.